fellow panelists. The digital revolution has fundamentally transformed the way that we work, live, and interact. It's created new opportunities and challenges, and the next phase is going to be all the more impactful. That means that the digital skill sets are crucial to keep pace with what's in store for us, for individuals and organizations and society at large. You all know that the financial sector has been undergoing a digital transformation, and it means different things to different people, but digital transformation essentially is changing the way companies, organizations operate, the entire organizational culture changing and transforming operations to deliver value to customers, new products, new business models, and the like. Now, Fintech has disrupted traditional banking and financial services, leading to greater efficiencies, better customer experience, and greater access to financial services. For sustaining this fintech evolution, it's obviously necessary that the digital skill sets are, keep pace with the ever-changing dynamic situation. With that, I'd like to ask my fellow panelists, first of all, is there a common understanding of what digital is? What does digital mean to you, and how does it, what does it encompass? And and especially in the organization that you're running, what is digital?
Hi, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So for me, digital is very simple. There is a why to it. You start with a why. So why digital? Because any process, any decision that an organization needs to take needs to make money. Now, hence digital. Because today, we need to go digital, otherwise we don't make money, which means digital acquisitions, client acquisitions, the way digital interactions happen, the way a fintech interacts with a bank, the way a consumer interacts with a fintech. So all that comes under digital, right? Anything which makes the life of an end consumer easier, faster, better, by a factor of at least 2x is a digital element for me. Anything which makes TAT or turnaround time lower, makes money, reduces costs, optimizes processes is digital for the organization. The how part of it today, there is multiple examples. You could use an app, you could do a Aadhaar stack, you could use a UPI stack. All these are examples of different technologies, which is why you have, when technology enters the financial domain, it's called fintech. So that's the how part of it. So the why, make money, make life easier. The how part, different technologies. So, yeah.
Hey, thanks. So for me, digital is basically the way technology has evolved over the years. It has now enabled for a larger consumer audience to become a part of the outreach. We now have handheld devices to track their behavior. The data at the back end gets processed. So that gives us opportunity to understand what back-end systems are needed to do a lot more innovations and come back with a lot more inclusive products, innovative products. So basically it's understanding the consumer through their handheld devices and using tech to provide a better customer experience and a better product offering for them. That's what digital is for me.
Venki?
Yeah, largely covered. I think I may not be able to add much to it, but just an attempt from my side. At a very broad level, to my mind, digital means automating some of the manual processes which were traditionally being done through manual interventions, etc. And we saw the whole concept of digital wave coming in during, or an acceleration of digital wave coming in during the COVID time, because there were challenges. So right from doing the work from home, allowing some transactions to happen for the customer, some of them also allowing, some of the transactional thing to be operated, the branches taking calls for the call centers, etc. Some of them could be an example of how you are introducing a digital process to ensure that the transaction is completed by bringing automation to it. That's the narrow view of it. The broader or the larger view in terms of how you can use digital is in terms of the business model context, process efficiency perspective, and building a culture where the whole organization looks at it that digital only is my approach and as first approach, and then obviously build on that and seeing some of those points some of my co-panelists mentioned about the TAT efficiency and some of those benefits will flow. You would actually see that the tech part, if it is integrated with the business model, the kind of efficiencies and the success that it will build is phenomenally different than trying to bring digital in one part of the business. So that's how I would describe digital in two parts, broader as well as the narrow sense.
Absolutely. So I fully agree with you. I think, like you said, it's broadly covered. To me also, digital is not just some technology. It's business transformation. It's, it's an organizational culture change, and ultimately leading to efficiencies and, and finally better customer experience, delivering value to the customer. That's the end game. Else, we wouldn't be. I happen to have, been in a part of a lecture in Europe about 5 years back, and it was a tour, kind of a study tour, and there was a gentleman who was part of a consulting organization and was telling us about how they brought down the turnaround time for opening a bank account for a European bank from 21 days to 7 days. Okay, and this was 5 years back. And I responded saying that we do it in 5 minutes already. And it was purely, thanks to, like you said, the Aadhaar stack. Today at Suryoday Bank, for example, we have, I could open an FD for you in less than 2 minutes. All we need is your Aadhaar and your fingerprint, and that's it, right? So it's taken leaps and bounds, and obviously India has, taken the lead in this. But are organizations keeping pace with that? I mean, what kind of workforce what is the future of the workforce? What will it look like? Start?
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's a very, very good and important question. The way I visualize the future workforce to be, one is we have to actually factor robots in our workforce. So human resources teams, not only they have to factor the human being, but they have to also see that there are also robots who actually coexist as a part of the workforce. Second, I think we all have seen traces of that we have seen the workforce being dispersed during COVID time. It has now become more of a norm. So in future, we are going to see more and more dispersed workforce. And you would also see that the gig workforce being used, and we are talking about the moonlighting concept, etc., that is actually being seen by some of the organization as offensive or breaking the code of conduct of the organization. I think organizations will have to allow gig working or the moonlighting as a part of the model itself. So adoption of the moonlighters or the gig workers into the mainstream, and the CTOs, CIOs and the CEOs actually have to embrace that going forward, that look, we can't do without it. The third would be that whole concept of, earlier the models were earlier that, this or that. I think it would be more now this and that. So how do you make an ambidextrous kind of a workforce where the business model has to actually integrate that it is not just this option or that option, but they have to actually coexist. And the last part, I think, in the workforce would be the adoption of change. The paradigm shift earlier used to take, let's say, an average of about 15 to 20 years. We have seen in the last 3 to 4 years that it has down to about 1 or 2 years. And we see that the change is going to actually be a lot more faster, and the uncertainty is only going to increase. So future workforce would be such which could actually adopt the change and make this as an integral part of their and growth. So we're going to see these broad four components of, what I can visualize as a part of the future workforce.
Thanks. Sreekant?
Thanks. So, I mean, that's one view of the future of workforce. I mean, the other perspective is, uh, I think it's the age of all-rounders now again back. Earlier it was the age of specialist. Now we are looking at a digital expert who is part marketeer, part data analyst, part techie, part business guy. So I think it's an age of all-rounders now again back into the force versus specialist, which all this while we are saying that this is what we need to have. Because any resource that we are going to engage in the digital sphere has to have this 360-degree view of the consumer, not just a myopic view of the customer, and then say this is what I'm going to build sitting in isolation. So that's what I think is going to be the future of the workforce.
Sure.
So I have a slightly different view. The way I'm understanding is what, Venki, when you mentioned ambidextrous, and Sri, when you mentioned generalist, essentially I'm clubbing it together. The way I visualize this, there are 3 or 4 main themes which are going to come across: automation, creativity, governance, and execution, right? And let me quickly give you a quick view on what I mean by this. In the last 6 months, we've seen ChatGPT coming across. I'm sure all of you have heard of ChatGPT. It's replacing ad writers, it's replacing marketing managers, it's replacing coders, it's replacing a lot of people, right? So the question which I will always think about is, who is governing ChatGPT? And which is why I believe in the future, you will have a larger demand for philosophers. You will have a larger demand for people who can think, how do I control AI? What are the limits that AI will go to, right? Ethics, governance, these are concepts that traditionally haven't always been at the forefront. We've usually been retrospective, right? So you will have people who will come with very strong governance, policy, to understand that this is the technology realm and this is how we can build upon it. We will need people who are creative. We will need writers. We will need, because all the manual work, right? Proofreading an agreement is done. In fact, creating the agreement is automated today. So automation, creativity to push forward, governance and ethics to ensure that we are in a domain which we don't wear humanity itself thin, right? And this has always been a spike every time new technologies have come. When nuclear power came in, when internet came in, and every time people said, like for example, a simple thing, when e-commerce came in, people said retail will no longer work, but they both thrive, right? But you need people to ensure that the new skills that they have are able to ensure that they are valuable. Coders cannot take their job for granted anymore, because eventually, today it's AI, tomorrow it'll be something else. So as long as we have skills which technology cannot replace, nobody can replace the face-to-face human connect. Nobody can replace poem writing or ethics writing or philosophy. So those are the concepts which I think the workforce will tend to, at least the high-paying workforce, will eventually move to.
Interesting. So you kind of converged on that eventually, because you're talking about being ambidextrous and you talk about general and all the stuff that's required around. The future workforce, if I sum it up, all the points made, one is ability to understand how things work, technology works, which means applications, ability to use AI, ML, algorithms, and more importantly, I believe there has to be some soft skills attached to it in terms of problem solving and creative thinking. You mentioned creative thinking also, right? And wrapping around all this is keeping cybersecurity in mind, because that's a big threat today. You brought up ChatGPT, which is very interesting. Now, I was going to ask, my next question is, how do you prepare the future workforce, given the skill sets that are required? How do you prepare them for this? And now we have a new joker in the box, ChatGPT, which probably if we had this conversation 2 months back, we would not have brought this up. Things evolving so rapidly, we have ChatGPT. It makes in one sense, you would, one would say that it makes life more difficult. And then you will have the counter saying that, you know what, and again, Raheel, you mentioned about how you can coexist, I mean, on e-commerce and retail. And this will coexist. Probably you need to understand how to use ChatGPT to your advantage. So we've kind of discussed what is required or what will be required. The next question is, how does one prepare for that? How do organizations prepare for this?
Okay, I'll go first. It's a hard process. Every time new technologies come in, what I have seen so we are in the business of giving loans for skills. That's what we do. We give loans for skills, essentially education, and recurringly, a theme which consistently is coming across is that the traditional courses, the traditional MBA, the traditional engineering, are no longer relevant. There is which is why you see the rise of edtechs, which is why, because you're seeing industry changing so quickly, you will always need industry marketplaces or industry practitioners stepping outside their industry and setting up programs for training. I'm sure you guys also have exhaustive training programs. So one is very clear that the benchmarks are going to be much higher. People will no longer need to be, as Sri earlier said, you cannot just be an introverted coder who is a absolute genius. You need to be a coder. You also need to be a people manager. You also need to be aware of what are the new skills. So the traditional MBA is dead, the way I see it, except for the top 20 brands which are there for a prestige value. The rest of the pack is eventually going to fade away because nobody wants to invest 2 years and 30 lakhs for a skill set that they will learn maybe at an edtech at a fraction of the cost and get a better paying job. So the way I would approach this is, one, companies will have to define, organizations will have to define that, look, if you want to succeed in this career path, these are the profiles and these are the skill sets that are expected as you go up the chain. And companies have to be unapologetic about changing that, right? So if today ChatGPT is coming in, organizations need to, so the CTOs and CHROs need to come together and say that, say from 2023, July onwards, we will need you to be well conversant on ChatGPT. It's like learning Excel now, right? Those are the kind of concepts which organizations will have to lead forward, because if you see the history, as long, all changes have happened because of employers changing what they need and the rest of it trickling down. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, I echo similar thoughts. First thing first is, I think we need to de-jargonize the entire industry and make it a lot simpler and send this message that you can acquire these skills. There are institutions that can impart these skills and acquire. And I think the role of HRO is very, very critical here. They sit along with the business guys and kind of start sending out these messages of what future roles are we looking at, what kind of skill sets are expected, and then ask the workforce to actually go out and then seek similar courses. While EdTech is great, I think today what we are seeing is multitude of courses at various price points. I mean, we literally don't know what exists and why it exists, and those who want to upskill themselves, those who want to be a part of this trade are in a confusing mode. So I think it's very, very important that the leaders convey of what they are looking at, what kind of roles they are seeking in the future workforce, and maybe also go for an industry tie-up or an education institution tie-up, or tie-up with practitioners who can come back and impart those skill sets and make them ready. And this is, what I believe is one where only a practitioner can teach, an academician can't. Because we are talking about a BFSI segment which has got a lot of inner contradictions. There are multitudes of governance aspects, regulatory aspects, business decisions, should the institution go into a specific product or not. In that sense, only a practitioner can actually impart these courses. And I think de-organize it and also start sending the message of what exactly are you looking for, and then set a curriculum for it. I think that would help for the future workforce to come out much better.
Yeah, wonderful. I think there are 4 components that I want to talk about in terms of, what should we do to prepare ourselves for the future workforce. One is that organizations have to decide what kind of skill sets that they are actually looking at, in preparation for the future. So rather than looking for degrees, it is actually the skill sets that they need to look at it. So far, if you look at it, our model has been largely a degree based, and then you look for, something like that. Second is digital dexterity as a part of the organization culture, that I keep digital at the center space of everything that I do. That would enable, which actually requires appointing some of the digital leaders, creating, the roles which are actually digital only roles for the organization, and they champion that. And third is to create a talent pool, which is related to, let's say, the pool that you can actually utilize for deployment. When the roles come in, you automatically create a culture that if I'm picking up these skills, there are better chances of me getting picked up for these roles. So how do you create, how do you, publish that, if you are part of this talent pool, you are going to get benefit. And the fourth thing would be that how do you, make sure that in general, there is a culture part that comes into this whole thing, where you are actually saying is that my reward and recognition system is also based on if you possess this kind of skill set. I'll give few examples. In our organizations in DCB Bank, we have, broadly three areas where we have implemented this digital transformation part. We have a concept called Techfluence, where the people from technology unit will actually go across the country. They will talk about the products and services which technology can do, and the people on the ground will also talk about that what is their requirement and what is their idea. And then it helps to co-create a product together. So that's where you are bringing the culture change, you are also rewarding. The second is we have a concept called No Fest. So each unit or department is actually made part of that fest, and they have to express creatively how do they demonstrate their businesses to the audience at a large. And we actually do that in across multiple cities. And they have to actually very innovatively show their journey, using digital means. And that actually embraces, the whole digital mindset in them. The third is what we call is DCB Innovation Carnival, which is simultaneously we will run, multiple online and offline hackathons, and through that we involve business units and the business guys to go there and be part of those pitches, be part of those, startup and fintech ideas that they come in. And we work with academia, we work with developer group and accelerator groups, etc. Now, Techfluence, NoFest, and Innovation Carnival put together actually present something that, look, the organization is focusing on certain skill sets or certain areas. If I'm not part of it, there is a fear of missing out, and then people join. In a very small way, we are contributing. Of course, it has to be agile. It can't be a one-time or an episodic kind of an exercise. So that's what we have been doing that.
Very interesting. So, assuming that everybody agrees on a definition of digital, and but then if you go back in history, humans are no two humans are like, right? We're all different, and then you go into any HR kind of chapter, and it'll tell you there are personality types, and in your workforce, and different people react differently. Now, when you're talking about digital skill sets being embedded in every single person in the workforce, and humans being what they are, how do you get them to get skilled in this? I mean, not everybody could take to a particular subject easily. They would find it difficult. So how do you actually try and ensure that they are able to adopt all the skills or learn all the skills that are required? And does it mean that the evangelists within an organization like the CHROs or CPOs or CTOs need to kind of define what kind of skills are required? You touched upon it, some kind of an industry taxonomy saying this is the kind of skills that are expected, and so the workforce is prepared much in advance. And two, engaging with institutions, educational institutions, to embed this in their courses at a much earlier stage. So when they come they're much more prepared. One is they're already part of your workforce, then you create something for upskilling them or right-skilling them. The other is also to prepare much ahead in the future by embedding these right in the, when they're much younger in their journey.
Yeah, so it needs to be a multi-pronged approach, right? I mean, so right now the trend that I'm seeing, I mean, from the position where I am, me and my organization, we are involved in trainings. We are also doing a lot of recruitments. Right now we are just seeing relocation of skilled people, and there is a cost push angle to it. Hyperinflated salaries happening to a few scarce resources. That's one angle to it, right? I think what is required is, a Y2K kind of a situation, what we saw in early 2000, right, where a BA, BCom, BSc, everybody did some kind of a training and then got into it, and they're doing fabulously in their career. I don't know, my own batchmates who just did BA Economics is now running Oracle, some division in US. So I think inclusiveness is very, very important. And for the early stage, I think institutions, organizations like banks and NBFCs have to work with academicians and institutions to redefine the course curriculum and what it is required for a employable workforce. Uh, but the larger challenge is how do you upskill your existing workforce? I think there the role of the business heads, the product heads, and the CHROs is very, very critical. You kind of start sending those messages, this is what we are looking at, and this is what you need to understand and know, and that's how you will get a role transformation. Because I personally do close to 100 to 200 calls every month to just to get the feel of the market. Everybody has this one question: how do I do career transition? I am into cash management, I am into branch banking. There is aspiration everywhere. Uh, but they feel that internally maybe they won't get that opportunity or they will not get recognized. If the messaging goes down right, I'm sure they will also figure out what way to get the right skills. We need to just, as I said, right, de-jargonize and send them. I think everybody, that one point that they make is, मैं API कैसे integrate करूँ? You don't have to do an API integration. That's not what is expected of you, right? What you need to do is what is an API and how does it work? What is the function of it? Understand of it, right? There are guys who will do it, and so there are multiple layers within this digital ecosystem in a workforce, right? Send out the right messaging that if you're looking at this roles, this is what you need to, these are the skill sets you would require, and then encourage them to get it. I'm sure, that's how it will work out.
I can actually give my example, if it's of any help, that I have no degree in technology. I have no prior experience before I took up the CIO role in the bank. I have no prior experience. The only thing that I have been able to pick this up is the mindset that even technology job, as you rightly said, it can be done by anyone. And I think that is what needs to go behind, and organizations need to actually make sure that how much they are focusing in a mindset change. Many a times it is seen digital means technology, it means coding. It isn't.
Yeah.
Understanding of technology, deploying that into your business model, you will always have specialists who would actually do this job of coding, or let's say cyber security, or they would do all intrusion detection and prevention system and things like that, or security operations center job. But I think what is being said with respect to the skill set is deeper understanding of technology and using technology for benefiting your stakeholders, which is essentially the customer at the end. If you keep technology and the customer at the center of what you do, your end delivery would be a lot more sharper, because leaving everything to the technology unit and expecting they would do everything, customer journeys actually are not being managed well, because as a product person or a business person, one needs to keep how you are going to walk the customer journey, how the data is getting federated, how the transactions are happening. One needs to have an understanding, keeping technology at the forefront of what they do. So I would sum up by saying that it requires a mindset change for which individual is as much as responsible as much as the organization which needs to drive this.
Fair. Actually, I couldn't agree with you more on the having a flair for technology rather than being an engineer or whatever. And I've had this argument, in India, to be a designated CTO of a bank, you need to have an engineering degree or an MCA, otherwise you can't be a CTO. I've had this argument saying that, I know people who've not done engineering, who've probably done, like Sri said, BA economics, but are much better CTOs than an engineer. Yeah, but that's a requirement, unfortunately. So I think you said it right. I mean, one needs to have a very deep ability and a flair for technology rather than be a engineer himself. Raheel, over to you.
So the way I would want to structure this is, I've observed two trends specific to India. There is this trend, a lot of engineers do MBAs, myself included, right?
Yeah.
Because that is the norm. You did engineering, you did MBA, you will
And
get
then
a
you
great
end up
job.
in finance.
Yes, and that's a trend, right? And the other trend I have seen is that we are very good at IQ, right? If you see, teachers, they go through an entire career of teaching and then they become principals, but they are not trained to manage people and teachers. They are very trained to, manage their curriculum and syllabus. It's the same thing at a CXO level, right? We've gone through the hard route, learned skills, hard skills. We've been rewarded at a leadership position, but the most important skill set of managing people, managing sales, managing organizations, there is no MBA for this, right? Essentially, there's no degree for this. So, as Venki earlier mentioned, right, we need to start celebrating skills. We need to start putting a much higher emphasis that, even if you're a backbencher in your entire career, if you have the right aptitude, and you have the right dedication to learning a skill, and skills are available plenty. There is no skill that you cannot learn and pick up today on multiple channels, some of it free of cost. So as long as we have that mindset at an end level, at a consumer level, and an organization believes that, no matter what, I'm going to invest dollars to right skill my company, right skill the people, I'm going to make learning a hallmark. It's okay if they leave, they get trained and they leave. That's the culture that has to say, I will train you so that you will do well here, but I will also treat you so well that you will not want to leave, right? As long as we have those two benchmarks coming in together, you will see this change, and this has happened in a lot of European organizations. It has happened where you will often see the C-level guy or the head of business, they have no degrees for this. They just have very strong aptitude for it, and they have the backing of the organization that says, learn the skill, we will help you, and it's okay if you want to leave, or I'm not insecure about my organization, right? As long as those things come together, we will be able to, build value.
Excellent. Sreekant, I have just one follow-on for you. You earlier in our conversation mentioned about how there are various types of courses at different price points. Now, that's going to be, that's going to be how the world is all the time. But how do you prevent an innocent workforce trying to right skill themselves falling into a trap of going, learning the wrong things at the wrong time? I mean, there has to be some kind of an industry standardization or benchmark which will help them, take the right kind of skill.
Absolutely. So, so my observation has been that when the JDs gets prepared, I think we need to do an upskilling even for the HR workforce also. I think that is very, very critical.
That will be the starting point.
That should be the starting point, right? What skill sets should the HR team have to recruit for digital vertical? I think that is very, very critical. And then they start sending the right messaging. I've been saying this for, I think the 5th time or the 10th time today is, what exactly is required, right? Today, I think the most romantic role which anybody wants to be is become a product manager. They literally don't have a clue on what it takes to be a product manager. It's not that simple. And there are a lot of other things, given your own personal, capabilities you can pick up. So I think once the messaging goes down on what career transition route is in an organization and what skill sets are required, those who are looking for programs would be in a much better position to choose what will suit them. Today it is now the predatory mode of any organization, including us. I mean, say, is we call, we convert, and then we make them do a program, and then they figure out probably they are not getting a role change. I think internally that messaging has to go out that if you are looking for a product role, this is what we expect from you. If you are looking to be a customer experience guy, this is what is expected. Now, depending aptitude maybe then the individual can choose what role what can benefit for them.
Thanks. We're running out of time, but we may have a minute for any question from the audience.
My name is Purav. I represent a company called Clip. Just wanted to ask a question on this very thing that you mentioned. I started my career, in an organization which took me based on my degrees. And essentially what we see is that entry-level jobs in most cases are done through campuses. So when the induction itself is set at, one of the biggest criteria is the organization or the academic university or the degrees that you are coming. Do you think it sets a mindset in the people at the get-go that, okay, this is my primary source of having got this job. So degrees are what, that correlation gets built into their mind, and probably that is where, as a workforce, people are more dependent on that and not really giving enough emphasis on skills to begin with. And if that is the case, if you do think so, do you think, how can we change that as a mindset from the recruitment itself?
It's to me.
It's an open question.
Okay. So, obviously, the security is at the center of everybody's mind when somebody joins, and, that's where one looks at it. But I want to share my experience in this space, that I have seen those people who have moved from one role to another role, or either they have expanded their role or they have taken a new geography. I've seen maximum amount of growth in them, and also they have actually been reaping the benefits of such a change. So typically what happens is that when you take up a new role, you actually think that there is a runway. I need to train myself. There is a learning curve and there is a curiosity. You actually start doing that much more seriously than the area or the background from where you come. Sometimes we do take it for granted. Okay, I'll give you my personal example. I had not studied financial management in my graduation, but when I was doing my management program, my post-graduation program in management, people asked me to teach financial management. I actually, since I had a background of financials, okay, I was able to teach them even without having read financial management. And the people I trained or I taught, they actually got A plus and I got A. Okay, the reason for that is somewhere, even while I was learning and teaching, I took it somewhere in the back of my mind that this is an easy subject, I can handle it. So when you take up something new all the time, you are replenishing your skill sets, you are reinventing yourself. Of course, there is an element of that fear will always be there about the protection part, that I need to be on the safer zone. You do that, but I think the part of your endeavor should be, can I add more skills? And then there are better rewards that are available if you are able to undertake newer skill sets or newer roles. But that's where your growth would be substantially more. Unless you attempt it, how would you actually know your potential? How far you can go, we will never know unless we attempt it. I hope that answers from my side your question. Any other panels?
Any other question? Yeah. Sorry, we've run out of time, so we'll wrap it up with this. Thank you, Raheel, Sreekant, and Venki. Thank you very much, and we'll wrap up for the day. Thank you.